Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Recently, I bought some succulents online. In this video, I want to show you the succulents that I bought, precautions to be taken when buying succulents online, and what I did after receiving the succulents so that they can grow healthy roots and adjust to their new environments. I purchased the succulents online in early April. In our area, during mid-spring, the temperature is neither very high nor very low, which makes this time very suitable for shipping plants. When these succulents first arrived, they were wrapped tightly in paper towels. Paper towels can protect the succulents and prevent them from suffering mechanical damage during transportation. At the same time, this packaging can also absorb water vapor, preventing excess moisture from rotting the succulents. As I was opening up these succulents, I found that some of the paper towels were relatively damp. This meant that the paper towel had absorbed excess water and helped to ensure that the plants were dry and less likely to rot. Most of the succulents were in good condition, only a few had lost a lot of leaves. In fact, this isn't really that surprising, as these succulents' leaves are very thick and will often detach if they are even slightly bumped during transportation. Don't be too shocked if you see this. It's also helpful to communicate with the seller and ask them to dehydrate the succulents before mailing them. This way, the succulents lack water and the leaves become soft, which will reduce the risk of being damaged. Personally, I don't think a few falling is a big problem, as we can use those fallen leaves to propagate more succulents. As long as the plant has intact stems, there is a good chance that it will recover. Once it has adapted to the new environment and grown more roots, it will push out more leaves. In summary, when buying succulents online, it's best to take proactive steps to prevent any major losses. First of all, it is best to remove the soil and dehydrate the succulents before mailing them, if they will be in a box for an extended period of time. If you will receive your plants within a day or two, there's no need to remove the soil. You can ship pots and soil by mail, but the shipping cost will be higher. It is easier and safer in the event of long transit periods to remove the soil and send the plants bare-rooted. The purpose of dehydration is mainly to maintain a dry environment and prevent your succulents from rotting. The succulents will be kept in a closed environment without ventilation during transportation, so any moisture will have no way to escape and will build up. Rot thrives in stagnant, humid air, especially when the temperature rises in summer. High temperature, high humidity, and closed transportation environment can easily cause problems. When dealing with succulents, some sellers will cut off all the roots, while others will just remove the soil. Both of these will work, as after the roots are cut off, the succulent will simply grow new roots. For succulents without pruned roots, you should prune off any withered or rotten roots once you receive them and then repot them. After receiving the succulents and checking to make sure that there are no problems, we can start to repot them. But first, we need to clean up the succulents by removing some withered leaves with our hands or with a pair of tweezers. While doing this, be careful not to damage other good leaves or stems. After we clean up the succulents, we can trim the roots. cut off any small, wilted, rotten ones in order to facilitate the growth of new roots. Now it's time to repot. When mixing succulent grow media, you can use gravels like this and peat moss. The gravels which I purchased online include black lava rock, red lava rock, myphanetum, and green mineral stones. We can also use other types of media such as perlite, sand, etc. Peat moss can be bought online or at most garden centers. Peat absorbs water and keeps the soil moist. We mix gravels and peat moss in a ratio of 7:3, or 70% gravels and 30% peat moss. The proportion of gravels can be from 70% to 40%. If the area you live in is relatively humid and you usually water more, it is recommended to use a high proportion of gravels, such as 70% gravels and 30% peat moss. If your area is relatively dry and you seldom water, it is recommended to use a low proportion of gravels, such as 40% gravels and 60% peat moss. At the same time, you should also formulate your soil mix according to the type of succulent that will be planted in it. For succulents that require more moisture, use a lower proportion of gravels. Under normal circumstances, most succulents can grow in a mix of 70% gravels and 30% peat moss. The ideal growing temperature range of succulents can vary depending on the species. Excepting those succulents which can tolerate cold, the best temperature for succulent growth is generally 10 Celsius to 30 Celsius. In summer, when the temperature exceeds 35 Celsius, succulents may enter a dormant state. At this time, it is necessary to provide shade, ventilation, and to reduce the frequency of watering. In winter, for most succulents, the growth temperature should be above 0 Celsius. Growth may stop when the temperature falls below 5 Celsius. And if it reaches 0 or below, succulents may suffer frostbite or outright die. There are, of course, some varieties which are more tolerant of extreme conditions, but on average, one should aim to keep the temperature between 0 and 35 Celsius. One of the determining factors for a succulent's bright, cheerful coloration is the temperature difference between day and night. A temperature difference of 10 to 15 Celsius is most conducive to getting this beautiful pigmentation. We can place the succulents outdoors when the temperature naturally drops, or artificially control the temperature difference. Some of the roots of the succulents which I just received have been cut off. When potting them, the most important thing is to give them ideal growing conditions and to let them recover from the trauma of shipping. The temperature should be kept moderate, between 10 and 30 Celsius, not too cold and not too hot. Succulents are light-loving plants, so we should give them enough light without exposing them to strong light which can burn them. From spring to autumn, there's no big problem growing them outside. In late spring and early summer, you should pay attention to shading and especially take care to avoid powerful sunlight at noon. Too much sunlight can cause damage to some succulents. You can place your succulents in a location that receives morning or evening sunlight to better meet their light needs. The succulents which I just received still need to wait for a while, and put them in a place with diffuse light and let them grow there for a while. Once they have grown new roots and established, I will move them gradually into brighter light. Light is also one of the important factors for growing succulents well, so don't shy away from giving them bright light once they have grown accustomed to their pot. Succulents growing in excessively dim light can lose their pretty colors and become gangling. There are a lot of different opinions out there about watering. Some people water once every 2 or 3 days. Some do so once a week, and still others maybe once a month. I personally think that you should not copy other people's watering frequency to care for your own succulents. You can learn from other people's suggestions and experiences, but there is no need to implement them exactly. This is because the optimal watering frequency can be affected by many factors, including the succulent cultivation medium, the environment at the time, the succulent variety, the growth status of the succulent, and the type of pot used. For example, using a medium with a high proportion of gravels requires frequent watering. If your local environment has good ventilation, a dry climate, and hot temperatures, then water will evaporate quickly, so watering frequency will also need to be high to meet the demand of the plant. A succulent which has just been repotted must also not be subjected to harsh conditions. It needs to be carefully taken care of to allow it to grow new roots as soon as possible. Therefore, we should water repotted succulents when the soil is dry. For succulents with well-developed root systems, you can cut back water in order to make the succulent leaves grow plump. When the frequency of watering is low, succulents enter a state of crisis. When we water them once in a while, they will absorb enough water and store the excess water in the leaves to overcome the leaner times. This is why the succulent leaves are round and cute. When it comes to choosing a pot, plastic flower pots have good moisture retaining effects, so they need to be watered less frequently than terracotta pots or purple sand pots, which have good air permeability. During the growing season, water more frequently than during the dormant period. All things considered, I personally feel that watering is a dynamic process and there is no fixed watering frequency. During the growing season, when the pot soil is completely dry, you can water it. During the dormant period, you can let the pot soil dry for a period of time before watering. Of course, many of these plants are still very resilient and adaptable. If you forget to water them occasionally or water them too much, most will be fine. I personally think it is safer to keep succulent plants on the dry side and not to water them too much. I think when caring for plants, you just need to maintain a certain level without going to extremes. The time and frequency of fertilizing succulents depends on their growth cycle, growth status, and species. For most succulents, during the spring and summer growth periods, plants have higher demands for nutrients and grow faster than in other seasons. Fertilizer is often absorbed more quickly at this time, and most of these plants can be fertilized once a month throughout the summer. In winter, as plants enter a dormant period and their absorption capacity weakens, fertilization can be suspended. When fertilizing, you can choose a dilute fertilizer, and the concentration should not be too high. Excessive fertilization can burn the plants or cause the succulents to absorb too much nutrients, resulting in the succulents becoming leggy and affecting their growth. When it comes to actually choosing a fertilizer, you can choose instant fertilizers, slow-release fertilizers, organic fertilizers, or others which are specially designed for succulents. As for those succulents which I have just received and replanted, I don't need to fertilize them. I will wait until the roots are well established before applying any fertilizer. Once you have grown succulents for a period of time, you can observe their growth status at a glance. If the leaves are sparse, fertilize during the growth period. If the growth is particularly vigorous and is set to fill out the flower pot, then there's no need to fertilize. I have been growing succulents for a few years, but I have never paid too much attention or time on them. I have watered them once in a while, left them outside in the summer, and didn't care if they got sunburned. I also didn't care if I got a mealybug infestation in winter. My previous principle was that as long as my succulents survived, I would accept it. But now I have discovered that there are so many good-looking succulents, and they are really beautiful and very cute. So I bought a lot of them and made up my mind to spend more energy and time on my succulents in the future. I gathered some information, consulted some experienced people, and prepared this video. I hope this video is helpful to you. If you are an experienced succulent grower, and if you have any suggestions or comments, please share them below the video to facilitate further learning and communication. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching and see you next time.